ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show. I thank you for being with us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. As Mel Brooks said in the movie History of the World Part 1, which everyone should see, politics, 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 politics. And, well, that's why folks tune in to the Roger Stone Show every Sunday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon. Doesn't matter where you live, folks. You can listen to the show at WABCradio.com. That's because we're live streaming worldwide in 173 countries, although totalitarian regimes may block our broadcasts in a handful of those countries. We are now a worldwide force. Don't miss anything. You can go to the app, by the way, go to the App Store and get the 77 WABC radio app so you don't miss any of the great programming here. So let's get into it. Late last week, 17 individuals, including President Donald Trump, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the greatest mayor in New York City history, and I guess 15 others were indicted in the state of Arizona in connection allegedly with their efforts to challenge the Arizona election results on the basis of fraud, and therefore to challenge the legitimacy of the bank of electors that had been put forward by the Biden campaign, and instead seat alternates, electors, that were pledged under the Electoral Act as alternatives. There is nothing wrong whatsoever with competing elector slates. They have been used throughout our history. President John F. Kennedy filed such a slate in Hawaii in 1980. His slate was ultimately seated. CNN's Van Jones advocated for the seating of alternative electors, non-Trump electors, in 2020. Harvard professor Larry Lessig, hardly a liberal, hardly a conservative, advocated for the seating of alternative electors in some states in 2020. Folks, there is no such thing as a quote-unquote fake elector. Democrats and their media flacks are attempting to criminalize a concept that they themselves invented and have actually utilized with impunity. Robert Bose, former White House advisor to President Donald Trump, held key positions in the Office of Personnel Management, as well as one of the president's appointees to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but a man who has made himself an expert on this entire issue, not only of the 2020 elections, but more importantly, what must be done to ensure that the 2024 elections are free, fair, and honest, joins us on the Roger Stone Show now. Robert, welcome to the show.
Very gracious of you, Roger. There's so many people that are making this fight to secure our election in 2024. But we've learned quite a bit from all the shenanigans and fraud that happened in the last couple cycles.
The great irony, of course, is that if any public figure or maybe even private citizen goes out and says, well, there were anomalies, irregularities, and evidence of outright fraud in the 2020 elections, the mainstream media insists that you're a conspiracy theorist, that you must be crazy. They've never been able to explain how it is possible that in the state of Pennsylvania, this is indisputable, more people voted than are registered to vote. But hey, don't get us hung up on the details. So let's go to Arizona. Where the case that was made in the state courts that there was substantial election fraud, where the fact that 59% of the voting tabulator machines in Maricopa County malfunctioned on primary day. That just happened, on election day. That just happened to be in the disproportionately Republican precincts. We know that the tabulator machine took, I believe it was a 19-inch paper ballot. It was tested the night before with a 19-inch paper ballot. But then on election day, ballots that were 20 and a half inches long were supplied, fully within the knowledge of the election officials that those tabulating machines would reject those ballots, that they would not be allowed to be counted by the tabulator. That caused long lines in which some voters gave up and went home. In other cases, the uncast ballot was thrown into a bin with a promise that it would be counted later, but the chain of custody of those ballots is more than questionable. So, Robert, what happened in Arizona last week?
Well, it's the several state elector slates have been targeted by the Biden regime. So Michigan and Georgia have been indicted, and these are legitimate electors. So Arizona, the regime has sort of been working on Michigan again, and Arizona had not been targeted. And I think that there's a bigger picture here that related to the Supreme Court case that Jack Smith is bringing, and that was Supreme Court heard on Thursday the 25th. The Biden regime, they believe, I think they think they're going to get clocked by the court. I was in there listening to the arguments. It's probably going to be a 5-4 or 6-3 loss for Jack Smith. And that will wipe out 3 cases. The J6 case in D.C., the documents case in Florida, and the Georgia RICO case. All 3 are going to get removed in a matter of weeks. They will probably rule on that in May, maybe in June. They have to rule it soon. And I think that the regime, and Jack Smith in particular, they know that they were going to lose those 3. And they needed another couple storylines out there. This is all theater. It's all fake. It's all, and they know they're going to lose on these things. But they needed to replace what they think are going to be 3 lost cases against Trump. Those cases are going to go away, in my opinion. And they needed to keep this narrative alive of, stealing an election, blah, blah, blah. So they brought this the night before, on the Wednesday night before the Supreme Court ruling, they bring this case to indict 11 electors in Arizona and 6 unindicted co-conspirators, including President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Roman, Boris Epstein, Christina Bobb, and I think John Eastman, I guess. So again, it's all there's none of those people did anything wrong. And I would purport that by bringing this case, by the Biden regime bringing this case, they are interfering with the election, but interfering with the rights of the federal election process it is built into the Electoral Count Act and the Constitution. They are depriving those slates of fulfilling their legal role under the Electoral Count Act. So they're effectively blocking a legal process. And I think that's part of a conspiracy that we need to go. If we had the Justice Department on our side, they should be going after that criminal conspiracy. The Biden regime is involved in the criminal conspiracy to interfere with this election and to toss out some new meat to the progressives who are fantasizing about, Donald Trump being indicted.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily interesting. I remember very specifically reading the minutes of a meeting of the Georgia electors that was called by the state party chairman in Georgia. And he very clearly says, we are taking this action to form this alternative slate of electors pending the outcome of litigation. We are simply doing this to protect our legal rights pending the outcome of litigation. There's proof right there of good faith. In 1877, we had multiple slates of delegates in what was one of the most contentious presidential campaigns in history. As I indicated, in 1960, John F. Kennedy disputed the election night count by Richard Nixon's forces. Nixon had formed his electorate slate, had claimed victory. JFK immediately legally constituted an alternative slate. Once the absentee ballots in Hawaii were counted, Nixon was wrong. He had lost. Kennedy was right. He had won, and his electors were admitted to the Electoral College and voted. I'm not a lawyer, but several weeks ago, Kari Lake and other Arizonans provided extraordinary documentation and evidence to the U.S. Supreme Court, bolstering the case that the Arizona election in the last cycle was wrongly decided. I'm maybe thinking out loud here, but why could you not take all of that evidence and use it as a basis for a motion to dismiss these charges against President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and others?
Yes. What are you suggesting, Roger? I'm sorry.
My only thought was that the absolute evidence presented to the Supreme Court might be used in the state courts to move for the dismissal of the indictment against President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and others. The only reason I say that is because the evidence they produced at the Supreme Court is so overwhelming. It's so compelling. It's so convincing. Look, I'm amateur lawyering, which is always a mistake.
No, I think you're that's exactly right. All this evidence is building on itself about the hackability, the incursions, not having running illegal software. Maricopa and Dominion in several states have been running illegal software that has not been approved by U.S. Election Assistance Corporation, does not comply with federal information standards. FISMA doesn't comply with the National Voting Rights Act, doesn't comply with Help America Vote Act. And they know it. So all that is now, the fresh evidence that is built on itself that will be brought into any of the existing cases, and in this new sham indictment in Arizona. Absolutely. We're going to blow it apart if they give us the chance. As you know, the courts, they just want the headline out there. They don't really want to handle and deal with the evidence. And they time it that way. The regime has timed it that way. So that does the most, what they believe to be the most, harm to the Trump campaign. They don't really actually want us to have a day in court because we're going to blow it apart. And but we've already blown, I think, with the Supreme Court on the immunity case. That's going to take care of three of those big cases, and we basically be left with the New York sham state trial on purported record keeping labeling, which is just the stupidest case ever. So that would have been the only one. Now they have to kind of gin up these fake indictments around the country, and they might go with Nevada or others, but we'll knock them down. What's really sad about this, though, is that in the process of, the get Trump process that the regime is going after, they are throwing a bunch of regular folks under the bus. They're targeting school teachers. These are regular people who wanted to serve the country, become a delegate, become an elector, all that. And now they're being, I think the regime really doesn't really care about 2020, going back to make these indictments about Arizona in 2020. What they really intend to do is stifle, suppress, scare, intimidate anybody from challenging elections when they steal it again. They're going to, they don't want anybody to be looking at these elections. They destroy evidence. They don't want people to have alternate slates, which they have to have alternate slates by the matter of law. They have to have alternate slates. So, but the regime is now scaring people. Who's gonna step up and be a delegate or an elector if they're faced with hundreds of thousands of legal bills because they're doing their job? And I think this presents a different problem where the RNC itself, they have been AWOL in this fight. The RNC needs to step up and actually protect their electors. They need to fund the legal expenses and call out this nonsense of these hoax cases, that these were legitimate electors. And it's another bigger conversation about RNC, but they still need work. RNC needs lots of work.
We'll come back to that in 1 second, but you raise a very good point. I'll give you a chance here. You've been very active in helping raise money for legal defense for those supporters charged in Georgia, those Trump supporters charged in Michigan, and now I'm going to believe those Trump supporters charged in Arizona. No, they're not all political titans. They're not all wealthy people. These, in many cases, are just the everyday soldiers within the Republican Party, all of whom believed, on the advice of counsel, that they were acting perfectly legally and historically legally. So, Robert, where can people go if they want to help these citizens who are under siege?
Well, thank you. So many of them have been raising money to fund their legal expenses. They have legal defense funds on Give, Send, Go, and but we put it all in one place. If people want to go to electorsfund.org or electorsfund.com, they can go directly to those people's links. Like Rudy Giuliani will have a link on there. Jeff Clark, these folks in Arizona who are just added, Anthony Kern, Jim Lamont, Jake Hoffman. I think we will be adding those names and putting, as soon as they get their Give, Send, Go account set up, we will have, and it's a direct thing. There's no middleman cut on this. It goes directly to their official legal Give, Send, Go accounts to help them in their defense against these bogus charges.
It is, having been down this road, one of the first things the government tries to do to get you to, quote unquote, cooperate, in other words, lie under oath to bolster their case, is to bankrupt you. It is very expensive. And there, folks, I urge you to go to GiveSendGo.com and seek out an opportunity to help all of these patriots. Robert, before we go to the larger issue of what is necessary in terms of ballot security and election integrity to win the next election, and I think you and I agree it's late, but it is not too late. Talk to us for a minute about Michigan and what's going on there.
Well, yes. I think traditional campaigns have focused over the years on get out the vote and what I call election offense. This year, like no other year, we need to focus on election defense. And that defense is to defend against, and it's not like stop the steal, you've been involved in that, but this is actually to prevent, before it happens, prevent cheating in the election, prevent illegals from voting, prevent folks from sending in some absentee ballots without signature verification. We need signature verification. All these like logistical things that we took for granted that weren't followed in 2020. We need to make sure that they follow the law in 2024. And then it would include making sure nobody puts a USB in the back of a tabulator that injects tens of thousands of votes, or we have no more, hundreds of thousands of ballots pre-printed in Bethpage, Long Island, and dropped off in Harrisburg. All these parts need to be defended and prevented in 2024.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. If you're tuned in, you're listening to The Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Robert Bose, who served ably in the Trump White House, both in the Office of Personnel Management as well as a Trump appointee at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but who's become a very good friend because of his keen political insights and also because of his absolute loyalty to President Donald Trump and, just as importantly, President Trump's agenda to make America great. We'll be right back with Robert Bose in just a minute.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian-approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code LISTEN50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code LISTEN50. T's and C's apply.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Robert Bose, who served in distinction in the Trump administration, serving in the Office of Personnel Management in the Trump White House, also a high-level position as a Trump appointee at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. But Robert Bose is not just a man of government. He's also a shrewd observer of American politics and a man whose dedication to President Trump and his vision for the country is unquestioned. I have learned a lot from Robert Bose in our short friendship, and I appreciate him joining us here today. Robert, we were beginning a discussion about what can be done between now and this November to ensure that we have a free, fair, honest, transparent election. I'm absolutely convinced, given the impact of Biden's policies, given Biden's inability to perform as a candidate, his obvious mental decline, the fact that we are actually funding both sides of a potential nuclear war in the Middle East. And we actually are now resorting to optics in that conflict, in which only a week ago, Iran launched an attack on Israel using both drones and missiles, we were told, which was going to be devastating and deadly. But in the end, it turned out that I believe one person was killed, and the whole thing appears to have been for optics, for the purposes of saving face. The Iranians, through the Turks, informed the Americans in advance of the attack so that key personnel can be moved out of harm's way. You have to wonder whether this whole thing is an expensive but dangerous fraud on the American people. We've just shipped another $62 billion to Ukraine. There are no ongoing peace talks allowed regarding the Ukraine-Russia controversy. Gas prices are creeping back up. You heard it here first, folks. It's going to be $4 a gallon. We have epic killer inflation destroying the buying power of the dollar. So the stage is set as people compare the successful prosperity and peace of the Trump presidency with the chaos we have today. But Robert, here's, I guess, my toughest question. You and I have talked about legitimate and legal ways to remove those registrations from the voter rolls that the post office certifies are being mailed to a bad address. Strong indication that those people don't exist. Much greater legal argument for removing those folks from the ballots. But how, and maybe there is no answer, how do we determine that people who are not legally eligible to vote on the basis of not being U.S. citizens, how can we prevent them from voting? Because in my home state of Florida, if you want to register to vote, you simply go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, you fill out a form, nobody asks you for a birth certificate or other proof of citizenship, and you're on the voting rolls. You can now vote. Is there a way, in your opinion, to prevent illegals who are, let's face it, flooding the country through our southern border under the open borders policy of this administration? How do we prevent those people from illegally voting?
It's a great question, a great opportunity for us to secure the election this year by doing so. The old school world is under the National Voting Rights Act. You had the challenge, and then the election board would mail out a postcard to the person. 2 years later, if they didn't vote in the general, then they'd have to wait another 2 years, send another postcard. It's glacially slow process in the NVRA world to get fake voters off the voter rolls. And there's some groups out there who take that time, really do it really well. Tom Fenton, Judicial Watch, people like that, Catherine Engelbrecht. But there's another way, and we have to deploy this right away with the resources of the RNC, and it is to identify and filter the voter rolls now to identify those fake, moved, doubly registered, registered in 2 states, illegal, felons, incompetents, basically build those sets, pre-build those sets of ineligible voters. They're not voters, they're fake. Because those people will be, maybe not all, maybe some, they will be exploited to suppress legal votes. Our normal votes will be suppressed by those fake accounts. And so by doing that massive data sort, it's basically like comparing the voters in North Carolina to the voters in Georgia. If it's the same person that's registered twice, you challenge them in the main, it's data analytics, and the RNC has the capability of it doing it, not doing it so far. Their view is just get a bunch of blue-haired poll watchers and let the horse out of the barn, and maybe they'll challenge it later if there's not another gig to make a bunch of money off of, as long as it doesn't upset the cocktail parties. So this is a totally different strategy to preemptively identify those people who are violating the law. They're intending to violate law. As soon as they request an absentee ballot, the states will report out which accounts have made requests for absentee ballots. You immediately compare those to this filtered list of those who should not be voting, and you challenge them right away ahead of time. That happens in September and October, not after the fact when it's too late.
Excellent answer, and really the answer I was looking for. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank my friend Robert Bose for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show to give us his unique perspective on what's going on, what happened in Arizona, why this tsunami of lawfare against President Donald Trump. And Robert, I will catch up with you for a longer discussion of what is necessary on the part of the Republican National Committee and the Trump campaign and all right-thinking Americans to ensure that our next election is free, fair, honest, and transparent. Thank you for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii in sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at StitchFix.com/Spotify. That's StitchFix.com/Spotify.
Grandpa's here!
Hank's always helping out. Grandpa style. Now he's treating his prostate cancer with help from Xtandi enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show on this beautiful Sunday afternoon here at 77 WABC Radio. We are the crown jewel of AM radio, the most influential and dynamic AM radio station in America today. Proud to be aboard. Being on radio and being active on social media, having my own Substack column, publishing print journalism at stonezone.com, also doing a daily net-based show, the Stone Zone. I have thought for some time that censorship, cancellation, silencing of voices is the greatest single danger to America today. Now, when you recognize that that censorship was not done, at least on the internet, by these large social media companies acting alone, but based on the Twitter file disclosures by Elon Musk when he bought Twitter, now known as X, they were done with the active participation, indeed, at the direction and under pressure from the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and others. This is so incredibly anti-American. In America, under the First Amendment, anyone is pretty much allowed to say anything they wish, no matter how disgusting or repugnant or wrong-headed that may be. Free speech is the bedrock of our constitutional republic. Democrats always talk about our being a democracy. We're not a democracy. We are technically a democratic constitutional republic. Today, it's important to point out that Facebook, Instagram, particularly TikTok, and other popular social media sites continue to have politically correct, and I wouldn't be surprised to see government directed censorship. Folks, if you want to see what could happen here in the United States, I bring your attention to the case of Alan Dos Santos. Alan Dos Santos was the founder of Terceira Livre. Pardon me if my Portuguese is not great, but this was once one of the most popular and visited alternative and conservative media channels in Brazil until the Brazilian Supreme Court, through the actions of Judge Alexandre de Moraes, decided to ban Alan Dos Santos and his media group, where he was employing over 50 journalists. Alan Dos Santos is a distinguished Brazilian journalist, renowned, frankly, for his unwavering commitment to conservative and anti-communist values and truth in media. He's a former seminarian, but he found his true calling in journalism, where he decided he could advocate more effectively for the principles that he believes in. He established his news outlet, which was a pivotal platform dedicated to providing insightful politics and culture. And he had a huge following because he deeply resonated with many Brazilians. You can still find him on X, formerly known as Twitter, but here's a little dirty secret. You can't see him on X if you are in Brazil. Alan Dos Santos, journalist, Brazilian, and a man that some have called the Alex Jones of Brazil. I actually think that that's unfair to both Alex Jones and Alan Dos Santos, but he joins us now on the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Mr. Stone. For me, it's an honor. I delightfully listen to you say United States is a republic, not a democracy, as people like to use this word nowadays, because North Korea call itself democracy, Cuba too. So it's a pleasure to listen to you. I'm a big fan of your work for years. I was inspired by you and Alex Jones and a lot of all the journalists in the United States. And this is the only one country that we have a truly republic. And I'm proud to be here in the United States defending the United States Constitution against all these revolutionaries that want to destroy this country and also want to destroy Brazil. Thank you so much for having me here, sir.
Delighted to have you. I was not among those who were surprised when Jair Bolsonaro was not reelected, despite his popularity. He carried, interestingly enough, all but one of the major provinces in Brazil, but in the government province, he was so overwhelmingly defeated on the basis of what yet again has been a challenged election. He is, if he's public enemy number one to the authoritarian communist regime in Brazil, then Alan, I think you're public enemy number two. People don't remember this, but the Supreme Court of Brazil had to change the law so the current president, Lula, would be eligible to run for president again because Lula had been convicted of venal corruption. Once the Supreme Court changed the rules to allow him to run, well, I began to believe that the fix was in. What is your take on the results and the conduct of Brazil's last presidential election?
Well, there was an election fraud, in my opinion, in Brazil, not in a sense of ballots or counting votes and so forth, but the Supreme Court in Brazil silenced a lot of mainstream media and also independent media. So it wasn't only Terça Livre that was affected by the Supreme Court censorship, but also Jovem Pan, the biggest radio, and also a cable TV in Brazil. They used to have the biggest audience in prime time in Brazil. So silencing journalism for doing their job just because they name what Lula da Silva is doing in South America, mainly in Brazil, it's a kind of a censorship. Better say it's not a kind of censorship. This is censorship, and this is not a fair election. And since Brazil went to this path, everything is getting worse quickly. Brazil was regaining the honor and the great things that we have doing in our country under Bolsonaro administration. We were fighting against all the socialists inside and outside of Brazil. All the communists in South America were very angry with Bolsonaro and also against Terça Livre. Due to our audience reached out people in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, and they really need to control the media. They need to control the parliament, the Congress, because they know if we have a chance to talk with the people in our country, they will see the difference between what the mainstream media is saying and what we are talking about. And I do believe they are desperate trying to silence Bolsonaro and all his supporters due to that. I mean, it's quite easy for me to understand why they invaded my house twice with guns, my wife pregnant, making a terror in my house just because I'm a journalist. I understand why they're doing it, because once we can talk to people, they will see clearly the difference between saying what terrorism is in Brazil, what the drug dealers are doing, their cartel, and what the media is doing when they cover it. I mean, they silence about it, and they are all connected to Lula da Silva.
Well, we see the travesty going on in a New York City courtroom right now where President Donald Trump is being prosecuted for a felony, despite the fact that there is no underlying crime. This all seems like deja vu to me. The jury in Trump's case is embedded with people who have attacked Donald Trump in their social media postings, who admit to be Trump haters, but who then in the next breath insist, well, that they can be objective. President Trump is, of course, gagged, as I was gagged. So Michael Cohen and the adult movie actress Stormy Daniels can attack Trump at will in the media, and they do, but Trump is not allowed to defend himself. My lawyers moved to recuse the judge in my case after she made a number of prejudicial statements against me. She called that a publicity stunt. She could have just denied it since it was made in good faith, but she used it as an avenue to attack me and my lawyers. In Trump, I also moved for a change of venue out of Washington, D.C., where the jury pool made it absolutely clear that I could never get a fair trial. That motion, of course, was also denied. And then lastly, I see this same practice of limiting by the judge the evidence that Trump can introduce in his own defense. In my case, I was not allowed to prove, which I could have done with expert testimony and forensic evidence, that there never was any online hack of the Democratic National Committee. And therefore, the underlying premise in my carefully fabricated indictment could have been destroyed. But the judge would not allow expert testimony or forensic evidence to prove that there was no online hack. In this case, President Donald Trump is not allowed to tell the jury that the U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal prosecutors in New York, reviewed all these financial transactions and elected to bring no case because they could find no crime. Trump is not allowed to tell the jury that. Trump is also not allowed to tell the jury that the Federal Election Commission also conducted a full investigation into these financial transactions and also determined that there was no crime. This is kind of a long question, Alan, but it appears to me that the real role, or I should say goal, of the regime in Brazil, just as it appears to be in this country, is to jail Bolsonaro, to incarcerate him, to end his effectiveness as a political voice and as someone who criticizes the authoritarian, I would have to say now communist, Brazilian regime. Do you think that's what they're up to?
Definitely. I do believe that's what they want to. And I would like to emphasize that a crime consists of an act defined as criminal, right? So you need to act. You need to do something in a specific time, in a specific day, alone or with other people.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick break, folks. We're talking to Brazilian journalist Alan dos Santos, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone, and you are listening to The Roger Stone Show on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. We're talking to Alan Dos Santos, until recently one of the most influential journalists in Brazil, now living in the United States because of the authoritarian, I would say even communist regime in Brazil. And Alan Dos Santos was, until recently, had a huge net-based following, as well as a great public following, but he was a critic of the current Lula government. And for that reason, he has been made, at least in his home country, a non-person. They've canceled him. As if he never existed. And under pressure, legal pressure, X, formerly known as Twitter, has been forced to go along with the limitation of the availability or the presence of Alan's great journalism in Brazil. So in other words, if you're in the United States and you are on X, formerly known as Twitter, then you can still read and see and hear what Alan has to say. But if you are in Brazil, that is not allowable. Alan, how many folks would listen to your daily ruminations on X?
Well, on X right now, I have kind of 100,000 people daily watching me. But in Brazil, back in Brazil, when I used to have my YouTube channel, there was 500,000 daily views. So it's I lost a lot of my audience was diminished right now. But I will not give up. I need to keep going, and I do believe we can fight back this tyranny. I'm encouraging people in Brazil to use the VPN, and it is pretty sad because all the terrorist group and even Maduro and Lula da Silva broadcast on X. So they are free to do whatever they want, to say whatever they want, but I'm not. And also it's happening with Bolsonaro, and I'm trying to fight back. It's pretty hard. So people in Brazil need to learn about VPN. They need to learn about cryptocurrency, because even my daughter's treatment, I have a daughter with autism. She's recovering from meningitis and encephalite, and the Supreme Court in Brazil froze my assets and froze the assets of my company as well. So even with this situation, people are trying to help me in my journalism and also to get a treatment for my daughter, but the Supreme Court does not allow it. So I'm fighting back them, teaching people how to use VPN and cryptocurrency and so forth.
So, Alan, if people do want to follow you on X, formerly known on Twitter, how can they do that on a daily basis?
Yeah, so Terça Livre, it's TERCA. It's kind of Tuesday in Portuguese because we started on Tuesday. It started with a very small channel. So Terça Livre, it's LIVEVRE. Sorry. So Terça Livre is my company's profile. My @ on X, it's Alan, ALLAN, LD Santos. So it's because of my whole name, Alan Lopes dos Santos. So it's ALLAN LD SANTOS. And I hope to find you guys there.
All right, folks, we're out of time for our guest, Alan Dos Santos, a courageous Brazilian journalist who is fighting a war against censorship and cancellation. Folks, this is a clear example of what could very well be coming our way. And I want to thank Alan for joining us on the Roger Stone Show today. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stone. And for me, it's a pleasure. And thank you for giving me a chance to tell all the American people what is coming and how they can fight back. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, at the beginning of the show, I promised you that I would give you the recipe for the 21 burger. This was the most popular dish at the 21 Club on 52nd Street, which was the place where the elite met to eat, as they say. Had to do quite a bit of research for this, but it's a simple recipe for the greatest burger you've ever had. You're going to need 2 pounds of ground sirloin, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, salt and freshly ground pepper to taste, 1/4 cups of breadcrumbs, and 1/4 cup of cooked celery chopped fine. You can get all those things at D'Agostino's or at Gristedes. Preheat your oven to 350. In a mixing bowl, combine all of the ingredients by hand using rapid motions without overworking the mixture. Now, shape that into round patties, about 8 to 10 ounces each. Now, heat a little bit of vegetable oil, or it could be the olive oil that is specifically for frying and sautéing, in a skillet with a metal handle. When the pan is very hot, brown the patties quickly on both sides. Then put the skillet in the oven and cook the meat until it is done to your required cookedness, tenderness, rare, medium rare. Don't cook it well done. That would be the death of a great burger. So there you have it, folks. The famous 21 burger, no longer with us, but wistfully perhaps once the greatest hamburger in New York City. Don't go anywhere, folks. We appreciate your joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. But coming right up is my good friend Joe Piscopo, who brings you Sundays with Sinatra. So don't go anywhere.